it's really hard when your mind is the thing that's like feeding you negativity. You have to be like, oh, no, wait, gotta turn that around.
Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses, and each week I talk with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets. Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas we all can apply to our own lives, personally and professionally. Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. This week, my guest is Team USA swimmer and Olympic silver medalist, Claire Weinstein. Claire is just 18 years old and is one of the most talked about rising stars in all of international swimming. Claire began swimming at the age of 3 and was already racing in competitions by the time she was 6. She qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials at age 13, officially making Claire one of the youngest swimmers to ever qualify. And when she was just 14 years old, Claire and her family took the bold step of moving across the U.S. from New York to Nevada, so Claire could join the highly acclaimed Sandpipers of Nevada swim team and significantly increase the intensity and rigor of her training. Well, her hard work paid off. In 2024, Claire won a silver medal at the Paris Olympics and now has her sights set on even more. In the conversation you are about to hear, Claire shares a behind-the-scenes look at her career and many of her success secrets. We explored the mindsets, techniques, and philosophies that have helped her become one of the best swimmers in the world. Our conversation is filled with powerful lessons on making bold decisions, achieving incremental gains, overcoming negativity, and so much more. Claire's wisdom is well beyond her years, and this episode is jam-packed with lessons we all can apply to our own lives. I hope you take away as much from this one as I have. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Claire Weinstein. Claire, where I want to begin, I want to go way back. So you began swimming on your own by the age of 3 and racing in competitions by age 6. Take me back. What's your first memory of swimming?
My first memory of swimming was probably when me and my family belonged to a summer team back in New York whenever I lived in New York. And we just loved going to the pool and just like playing around in the kiddie pool, specifically me and my older brother. And then one day my mom was like, if you went into the bigger pool, you'd probably be able to swim, because I would kind of like doggy paddle around like the kiddie pool. And I went into the bigger pool with my brother, and I basically taught myself how to swim. That's kind of how it all started.
So you just took off.
Yeah, I guess.
So you're pretty young. You kind of teach yourself to swim. How quickly was it until you realized that you might be a little better than the average person at this thing called swimming?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because looking back now, I was kind of a standout swimmer since I was probably about 8 years old. But I don't think I realized it until I made the Olympic trials 13 years old. And that was like a crazy thing. There were like tons of news articles about it and a ton of people talking about that. And at that point, I kind of knew like, okay, like I think like I'm good at swimming. I think I'm good. But I think the reason why I didn't know when I was younger was because I was always swimming with people that were much older than me. So I kind of was like even with them, but I was always like either 1 or 2 age groups like above where the people my age usually were.
So take me through that experience. I mean, qualifying for the Olympic trial at age 13, was this something at that point that you had made a goal? Did it just kind of happen? Did people seek you out? How do you qualify for the Olympic trials at the age of 13?
Yeah, well, the great thing about swimming is that there's so many different time standards as you go on. Like you start at junior Olympics, then you go to zones, junior nationals, and then it goes all the way up to national cuts. And kind of as I swim, I just got them one by one. As I got like my zones cut, I was like, okay, let's get my futures cut. And I was like, okay, time for my juniors cut. And it was the year after COVID, and we had just taken like the 3 months off. I had grew so much that year, I think, because I was just sleeping so much more. And we got back into swimming, and I just like kind of picked up where I started. There were a lot of people that had to build back into it and whatever, but I think because I grew so much, my body was just like ready to get back into swimming. And so right off the bat, I was going best times, which was like crazy to think about. I just had taken 3 months off of swimming, and now I was like the best I ever was. And so in December, I made it my goal to get Olympic trials once I got like my US Open cut, because that's like the last cut before trials. And so, yeah, I made it a goal and I worked hard in practice every day to achieve that. Then I think in January, I ended up getting it. So that was super cool.
To qualify, as we said, you qualified for the Olympic trials at the age of 13. Then at just 14 years old, you took the bold step of leaving home, you and your entire family. You left your home in New York. You relocated to Las Vegas to join the highly acclaimed Sandpipers of Nevada swim team. Take me through that decision. What was that conversation like? Did your parents come to you with the idea? Did you go to your parents with the idea? How does that come together? Because a family moving across the country to help someone who's just 14 years old chase a big ambitious goal is not something that happens all the time. Take me through that, Claire.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I mean, as I got better on my old team, it kind of became more apparent that like I wasn't really racing anybody in practice. Like it was kind of just like me against myself. There wasn't really anybody like going in the trajectory that I was going in. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a ton of swimmers who are like the standout on their team. And I loved my old coach. She was amazing. She did so much for me. But I knew if I wanted to get to the next level, I was going to have to move to a team that had more resources, because she just didn't. We had very minimal pool time. I was swimming 6 or 7 times a week. And other people at my caliber were doing like doubles, lifting, all that. So I knew I was going to have to make a move if I wanted to guarantee my trajectory. And so I went to Olympic trials, and it was obvious, like the standout teams, the people putting the kids on the Olympic team. And the Sandpipers specifically was a standout because they were a club team putting multiple Olympians on the team. And so me at 14, wanting people to race and practice and like trying to find a team that was going to be good for me, it was almost obvious because these are high schoolers that weren't going to be graduating anytime soon. Like now, obviously, all of us are kind of off to college, but at the time, these would have been my training partners. So my parents, they kind of came to me with the idea, but it was already like up in the air, like whether like I was going to move or not. And so me and my mom ended up taking a trip to Vegas August of that year, and I loved it. I loved the coaches and the people on the team. So kind of right after that, I think like end of September, we all ended up moving out to Vegas. So it was a pretty fast process, but yeah.
Do you remember any conversations with your siblings around that time where were they excited? Were they a little annoyed that, hey, we're packing things up to move across the country for Claire's swimming career? Talk about that.
Yeah, I think honestly, when we first started talking about it, I don't know if they like fully believed it. My younger sisters, they were like ecstatic. I remember like specifically my very youngest. I don't know how old she was at the time. She must have been like 5 or 6, honestly, but she was really excited. Her whole COVID year was kindergarten, so she kind of missed that like friend building phase and like where you like kind of get your roots in your school. So she had never really been to like a upper school other than like preschool, and she was so excited to go. I think the only person that was kind of apprehensive about it was my older brother, just because like he was in high school, he had all of his friends there, but he ended up liking it in the end. So yeah, I think most of us were pretty in favor for it. And yeah, I think COVID helped like a lot of us kind of were distanced during COVID, and I think all of us were excited for a change.
Well, as you and I have talked about before, Taylor Swift once convinced her parents to move from the Philadelphia area to Nashville, and that worked out pretty well for Taylor. And certainly your move to Las Vegas has proven to work out well for you so far as well. So I'm curious, 14 years old, you make a big move like that. A lot of thought goes into that, a big decision for you personally and for your family. Did you feel a new sense of pressure, or were there any kind of new feelings or emotions that came with your swimming career once you had made the decision to, in many ways, almost go all in because you were making such a bold, decisive move for your family?
To an extent, yes, definitely not from my family. Like, they were 100% supportive and like 100% in on the process. And I think when we moved, my parents and I knew that like the end goal was to make the Olympic team. It was never to just shoot up and be like the best person once I got there. So we knew it was going to be a 3-year process, but I think I definitely put pressure on myself, especially like the first couple months, because I wanted to prove to myself that it was the right decision. And I thought that other people would be judging me like for making this move if like it didn't go well or stuff like that. So I think I just wanted to prove it to myself. And it's not that other people were putting these pressures on me, but I think I was making it out to be like, it was a serious move, but I thought people would think badly of it or like stuff like that. But in the end, like, it was fine. And I don't think anybody cared at all, honestly, like as much as I think they did, at least.
How did you push through those initial couple of months? Like that, maybe that little added pressure that you created for yourself. Do you remember having to kind of talk yourself out of some frustration? Did you have to talk to yourself to give you some confidence? How did you kind of push through those first couple of months?
Yeah, the first couple months, like on the team, honestly, were like very hard for me because I was going from short, not light practices, but the practices from my old team were so much different and so much easier compared to what I was now going through on Sandpipers, like doubles 3 times a week, lifting 3 times a week. And I mean, Coach Ron, he eased me into it a little bit, but I was still dying pretty badly the first couple months. But I remember at our first like taper meet in December, it was junior nationals, short course junior nationals. And I was so nervous. I was like freaking out before every race. I was like, I have to make this move worth it. Like, like all the rest. And I ended up doing really well despite being so nervous. And I think that kind of took the pressure off a little bit. I was like, okay, like it's going well. Like I'm going in the right direction. Like the move, it's been good. So I think that gave me the confidence in like my next races to just like kind of swim freely and without that pressure on me.
So for people like me and anybody listening who's not super familiar with elite swimming, what was the biggest change in terms of the training once you got to Vegas compared to what you had been doing at your club back home in New York?
Yeah, it was 100% just yardage and intensity. At Sandpipers, we do a lot more yardage and it's a lot more intense. For example, I guess an average like main set on my old team would probably be like 5 100s fast or something like that. But an average main set on the Sandpipers would probably be like 30 100s fast. So it was definitely a big step. And in the end, it worked out, but it was definitely hard adjusting to that big of a jump up.
What about the being in an environment where you were around such elite swimmers all of a sudden? Did you feel like, I mean, you obviously talked about creating a lot of pressure for yourself in your own head, a lot of pressure that was self-created. What about being around so many other elite swimmers? Did that create additional pressure? Was that intimidating? How did you navigate that?
Honestly, it was intimidating at first. I remember when I came to visit, I was kind of scared of the people in the group just because it's such a tight-knit group. I think at the time there were only like 10 or 12 of us. So it was hard integrating into that a little bit. And everybody welcomed me with such open arms. But especially back then, I was very introverted and I had to push myself to be like talkative and everything. But yeah, coming into a group with multiple Olympians, it was definitely super inspiring. And when you have such an elite group like that, everybody's driven to want to get better. So that was definitely super inspiring. And when you're a part of that, like, you want to get better too. And every day you come to practice ready to grind and just try and give it your all.
So we'll fast forward now a little bit. Dream comes true. You make the Paris Olympic team. It was your first Olympics. In many ways, kind of validating your decision to move to Vegas and join the Sandpiper team. Take me through that moment you found out you were going to Paris. What does that feel like? Take me back. Paint the scene, Claire.
Yeah, so I made the Olympic team in the 200 freestyle and for the 4x200 freestyle relay. So it was the 200 freestyle final. I think I was seated second going into it. And in finals like that, top 6 usually make the Olympic team. Top 4 are guaranteed just for relay spots. And then they take 5 and 6, depending on how many roster spots are left, as relay alternates. So in finals like that, I think everybody's mentality is just don't get 7 or 8 because that's like the worst position you can be in. And so I was so nervous going into it, but everybody was like, it's like the biggest meet of your life. Like, you have to do good. Like, it's one race is going to define like the rest of your summer and whether you're an Olympian or not. And so I just wanted to go in there and race my best. And I ended up going out so fast, like way faster than I usually do. And I think everybody kind of did that just because of like the adrenaline. And I got my hand on the wall second, which was a big win because it also meant I would swim the 200 free individually in Paris. And honestly, sadly, it was more of a relief than like a joyous feeling because I just had so much pressure going into that meet, like pressure that I put on myself and just pressure that like everybody else, like I was projected to make the Olympic team basically. And so it was such a relief when I finally did it. And yeah, I guess that's like the way I could describe it. I wish I could say, yeah, I felt so happy, like it was the best like feeling, but I was just like, oh my God, thankfully I did it.
It's a common theme that I've heard in a lot of my conversations with Olympians and other high performers is that there's almost more of a feeling of relief than joy. And it's something that, as I've talking to others who have a longer career or a longer Olympic career than you have, it's something that many feel like evolves over time, that as you get further on in your career, you actually are able to dial into that feeling of joy a little bit more than that relief. But two very different but related emotions. I'm curious. I've talked to so many Olympians. I'm always curious to ask about the Olympic experience. Was the Olympic experience what you expected? Was it different? Talk about that, Claire.
Yeah, in some ways it was expected, in some ways it wasn't. I think like the village was exactly how I imagined it. It was like apartments, and then it was like a little town with shops and everything. They set it up super cute, and there was so much to do. I didn't even get to like hit it all, but I didn't swim the last, I think, 3 days of the swim meet. So I got to just go around the village, like in between the sessions and do all this stuff, go to the coffee shop and just walk around. There was like a grocery store too. It was really cute. So in that way, that was like exactly how I imagined it. But I think the pool definitely was not. I don't know if you know this, but the Swimming Olympic Trials was at the biggest swimming stadium, like I think ever. Like it was in a football stadium. I think they had 25,000 people there, I think 25,000 spectators, which was a lot, especially for like swimming. Like usually the stadiums are pretty small. And so I remember this is kind of a feeling that most of us had on the Olympic team, but we walked into the stadium for the first time and on the deck. And our first thought was like, this is like small compared to we were just at. It was so like probably half the size of Lucas Oil where we were swimming for the Olympic trials. And honestly, it was nice because we just went through the ringer basically at Lucas Oil. Everybody's like fighting to make the Olympic team, like going to battle. And now we're like one team and we're at this pool and it seems like nothing compared to that. And I think that helped with the nerves and the pressure a lot. So yeah, I guess that's two different sides of it.
What are some of the things that you do to try and navigate that pressure? When you feel the pressure and some of that anxiety start to well up inside you, are there specific techniques, approaches that you take to try and mitigate that?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten better at handling the pressure over time. I'd say the things that I do is just remind myself I've trained for this. I go to practice every day, like doing much worse than like this 200 2-minute race that I'm doing. Like I swim for 2 hours, I can make it through a 2-hour race, and just
A 2-minute race.
yeah, no, a 2-minute race. And so that's one thing. And then, yeah, I guess just like trusting that it'll all work out is just like two things that I usually tell myself. I used to get so nervous and psych myself out before every race, but as time has gone on, like it's definitely gotten much better. And as I've made my name like more prominent in the sport, I guess it's given me more confidence to go into my races with in recent times.
In a way, maybe the more notoriety and fame in the sport that you've accumulated, in a sense, you almost feel like you belong a little bit more. There's a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, everyone. We'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today. So I'm curious. I mean, you outlined a lot of different elements of the Olympic Village and different aspects of the Olympic experience. One of the things I'm always also fascinated to ask, or curious to ask Olympians, is how do you balance all of that when you're at the Olympics? How do you balance the distractions? How do you balance soaking everything in and enjoying the experience, but also remaining like incredibly dialed in and focused on the task at hand, which is to compete?
Yeah. I mean, I think the veterans on the swim team specifically are so much help, especially at the Olympics. Like they've been through before. The Olympics is like no other meet. So you only know what the Olympics is like after you've been there and after you've competed. And so the veterans help so much with preparing us and preparing like what we think is going to happen and what will happen. And one thing that they always say is it's never going to go your way. Something's going to happen. It's not going to be perfect. And you're going to have to dodge the bullets and you're going to have to think of a new plan and adapt, I guess. And so I think that helps, just like the guidance from the veterans. And also they really, were adamant with the fact that, or telling us that we were there to win medals. There's a lot of people at the Olympics, probably 90% of the athletes at the Olympics are just happy to be there and happy to compete and happy to soak everything in. But the swimmers, and specifically the USA swimmers, are there to win medals. So they were like, you have to be locked in. There's going to be time to do other stuff. But like when you're competing and the days leading up to when you're competing, like you have to be just swim and like preparing for your swims.
What does locked in look like for Claire Weinstein? Take me into locked in Claire. What does that look like?
Locked in is probably just in my free time doing any recovery I can, like whether that's Normatec, which is like air compression, or rolling out, and napping, definitely, because sleep is like definitely the most important part, especially at swim meets. And just preparing for my races, laying out what I need to do. Usually I write down a timeline of what things I need to be doing at what time, just so I can stay on that the day of the race. And then just no distractions. Not that I'm always thinking about like my race, but limiting the distractions that are gonna, like anything that's gonna make me nervous or anything that's gonna add pressure to anything, just avoiding all of that.
How would you say your preparation and routines have evolved over time throughout your career?
Yeah, honestly, like it's mostly stayed the same. When I moved to Sandpipers, I learned their dynamic warm-up that they do, which is basically just on land, like movements to get yourself warmed up before you swim. So, I mean, ever since I moved to Sandpipers, my routine has kind of been the same. It's like you get to the pool, dynamic warm up, then we do the same warm up every time. You get out, put your tech suit on. I guess like my before I go to the ready room routine has changed. Basically, after I put my tech suit on, now I get in and do like a couple variable sprints, which is where you like go smooth and then fast and then like fast, smooth and kind of like turn it on and off. I never used to do that when I was younger. I would kind of just get back in, get my suit wet, just feel it out, and then I would go to the ready room and be good. So I guess that's changed. I do a little bit more like before I actually go and swim. But I think most swimmers, like if actually, I feel like it's like this for a lot of sports, but a lot of people have the same superstitions as they had since they were like 8 years old. Even the way I like slap myself or like the things that I do like right before a race is the same exact thing I've done since I was like 8 years old, like behind the blocks, like getting ready to swim like a 25 freestyle. So
The same routines as when you were 8 years old, 8-year old
yeah.
Claire. So I'm curious, and obviously, in any activity, in any discipline, a lot of our success comes down to doing a lot of little things a little bit better than everybody else. But swimming, I mean, swimming just strikes me as, and I've had conversations in the past on the podcast with Reagan Smith, one of your teammates, and you and I have had conversations in the past too about this idea that swimming is a sport where improving by tenths and hundredths and thousandths of a second can make all the difference. And I'm curious, like, how do you, from a mindset perspective, wrap your mind around that and just constantly stay focused on these little incremental improvements that in many cases will make all the difference in your competition?
Yeah, it's definitely mentally challenging sometimes. I mean, swimming is such a demanding sport. We train so much. Like, we could have up to 11 swim practices a week on top of like 3, 4 strength practices. So it's a lot. And a lot of times, no days off. And even if you do have Sunday off, it's like you're using it to recover, not really doing anything fun just because you're so tired from the week. And so, yeah, I think that in training, you just have to give your best every single time. There's no room to be like, oh, like I don't feel good today. Like I don't think I'm going to go as hard. You know that there's other people giving 100% in everything. And at times, especially at swim meets, it can feel like you're not improving or you're not like taking steps in the right direction, but you just have to trust the process. And I think that's a really big thing about swimming is most swimmers only swim good 1 or 2 times a year. And so you gotta kind of just thug it out through the
Why is
entire
that?
year. Yeah, well, it's because swimming is a big taper sport, so you got to put a lot of work in, and then towards peak meet, you kind of like lower your yardage, like the intensity kind of stays up, but you like lower, and then like you're ready for peak meet. And I'm not like a taper expert, but I know swimming is the kind of thing where you got to put in a lot of work, and it's really hard to swim fast when you're high in yardage and you're tired. So I guess that's one of the reasons.
So the reality, though, is we're not always at our best. We rarely feel our best. We rarely feel like we have all the energy that we need. What do you do on days when you wake up and you just say, there's a lot of work to do today, but I just don't feel my best and I still have to do it? What do you do to kind of push through those scenarios?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of days like that. You wake up and you're like, you feel awful, you still have to go to practice. But I think honestly, what helps me is just reminding myself that like everybody's going through the same thing. Like specifically the people in my group, we all feel the same. No one's waking up in the morning and being like, oh, I feel so refreshed. Like, I'm so ready for practice today. But I mean, for me at least, I know that when I'm tired and when I feel like sore and badly, it's kind of a reminder that I'm working hard and I am getting better. And the further that I push myself when I am tired and when I am sore is just me getting better for the future.
What about, obviously, you talked about it being a very intense sport. It also can be a very lonely sport, I'd imagine. And Reagan and I have talked about this too. I mean, when you're in the water, I mean, it's just you. nobody can really get commands or encouragement to you. Are you a believer in self-talk? How do you kind of keep, well, let's look at this from both angles. If you feel like a swim is going really, really well, how do you keep that momentum? And then if something's not going as planned, how do you talk yourself into getting right pretty quick?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not very good at self-talk. I've gotten better over the years at kind of turning around negativity and being more positive
How do you
because
do
I
that?
am it's hard. I mean, you have to like first recognize that you're being negative because it's really hard when your mind is the thing that's like feeding you negativity. You have to be like, "Oh, no, wait, got to turn that around." But I think it's just like first recognizing what you're telling yourself because sometimes it's your subconscious and sometimes it's like hard to recognize, but just turning that around and being like, well, I'm at swim practice and being negative is not going to help. Just pushing through and everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know. It is hard at times, but I'm a very analytical person, I guess, a numbers person. And I think having specific like time goals, whether they're like big or small at practice, definitely helps make it through and make it less boring, I guess. Like having sets where I know I have to hit the specific time or do the specific thing definitely makes it a lot more interesting, I guess.
We've talked a lot about a lot of the things that have really stayed the same and consistent for you throughout your career. What would you say, like, what aspect of you as a swimmer has changed the most? Is there anything that you feel like has really evolved and changed quite a bit over the years?
That's a great question. I'd probably say, I don't know. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is honestly confidence. And like we talked about this a little bit already, but when I first moved to Sandpipers, I definitely was like, I felt like I was lesser than other people. Or when I made my first world team at 15, I kind of felt like I was out of place and that I didn't belong there and that I wasn't as good as everybody. But I think over the years and as I've made like more international teams, I've gained confidence and felt more like I belong. I'm like, yeah, like I'm a good swimmer and that's why I'm on this team. And yeah, I fit in with everybody else. And not even that like you're supposed to fit in, but I kind of just felt like a little out of place like my first couple years and that I wasn't good enough. And that's definitely something that has changed over the years. When I make a team now, I'm like, okay, it's weird to say, but I'm kind of a veteran now. I've made 2 world's teams, 1 Olympic team. And I think now I have enough experience and yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that's changed, honestly.
I know you're a modest person, Claire, but I got to ask about 2023, the U.S. Swimming Championships. You beat Katie Ledecky in the 200 meter by 0.02 seconds. That has to be a moment that builds a little bit of confidence and says, maybe I belong, right?
Yeah, I mean, people bring that up a lot, but honestly, I love racing and people always bring that up. That's definitely not like like if someone asks me like what's like my favorite race or like my biggest accomplishment, that's definitely not up there. And just Katie has been such a big inspiration to me and so helpful over the years, just honestly like showing me the ropes and helping me with like nerves and everything like that, especially on relays. And I think, yeah, that's people bring that up all the time, but I think I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just racing and things can go certain ways, like different times, but yeah.
We all get to see Katie Ledecky, the competitor, from afar, and she's obviously had an extraordinary career. What's something about Katie Ledecky as a leader, as a teammate, that maybe the public doesn't get to see that you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of like is expected, but especially being on relays with her, she definitely brings the expectations up and in a good way. It's not even like pressure, but it's like you want to do good and you need to do good because she holds herself to such a standard that you just want to like level up and meet her there. And I think her being on the relays and just being on a USA relay specifically, there's a type of expectation that comes with that. And I think that's one of the best things. And I think that's why US relays always swim lights out and always swim their best. And everybody always swims faster on USA relays, which isn't very common is just because of the pressure, but in a good way almost. You get the adrenaline, like you want to do good and you want to help your team out. And yeah.
So obviously you have an enormous amount of physical talent to do what you do. But other than the physical talent that you have, what would you say has been kind of most critical to your success so far in your career? If you had to distill it down to one or two things.
Probably consistency and I don't
What does consistency look like to you, Claire?
just like always showing up. And like you said earlier, even when you're tired, even when you might not want to go to practice, you just show up every single day, because the times where you don't want to be at practice and when you're hurting and when you're tired, that's when you're going to be getting better. When you feel amazing and you're doing amazing in a set, yeah, it feels great, but everybody can swim fast when they feel good. Not everybody can still have their confidence up and still swim fast when they're tired. And I think that's one thing that I've definitely had to learn over the years. But I think when I look back, I've been consistently swimming and consistently giving my best effort at every single practice, probably since I was like 11, 12 years old. And that adds up over the years. So that's definitely one big thing that I can say that my success is from.
It sure does compound over time. Consistency is certainly an important part of our success in anything. We've talked about maybe some of the lack of confidence at times and not feeling like you belonged all the time. Other than that, anything else that you worried about a lot, maybe earlier on in your career, that you wish you hadn't spent so much time worried about?
I think this is not like very early on. This was maybe like 2 years ago, but once I made my first world's team, I felt this pressure to like have to do it like every single time. And I remember the second year in 2022 World Trials leading up to it, I was so like I psyched myself out. Like I had this phase in practice where I was almost like, scared. I was like, oh, like if I don't do good in this practice, like it's gonna affect me later on. Like I have to do good. And that was just like not the way to look at things, because honestly, when you put that kind of pressure on yourself, especially at practice, it gets really exhausting. And especially when the practice doesn't go well, like it kind of compounds onto the next one. And so I think, yeah, just being more chill, honestly, at practice has helped, and just not taking everything seriously. Like, yes, or not taking everything like it's going to affect me in the future, I guess, because I used to think, oh, if I do bad in one practice, I'm not going to make the world's team, or I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to go this time. And I think just reminding myself that if I'm giving my best effort, like that's good enough for that day. And even if I think I'm not doing good, there are people that are not showing up, and there are people that are bailing out when it gets hard. And I'm not going to be one of those people.
You are certainly giving your best every single day to yourself and your teammates, but you're also giving your best to the swimming community and younger swimmers that look up to you and in many ways idolize you and aspire to be like you. You've spent a lot of you've got limited time because you spend so much time training, but you've spent time volunteering to train young swimmers. You've donated money to support economically disadvantaged young swimmers. You've done a lot already at a young age to give back to a sport that's already given you so much. I'm curious, have you taken time to think about the idea that there are young swimmers out there, young people in any sport who look up to you, who aspire to be like you, just the way maybe you looked up to other swimmers when you were younger? Like, is that something that you've had an opportunity to kind of think about and wrap your mind around a little bit?
Yeah, it really is hard to wrap my mind around it, because I remember when I was younger and watching the Olympics, and I like wanted to be like them one day, and they were my idols, and now I'm swimming with some of them and friends with a lot of them. So it is a crazy feeling, but yeah, having swimmers look up to me, it's a very special feeling. And with that comes more pressure, because you don't want to let them down, I guess, which I don't think you ever could. But when there's people that look up to you, you want to be your best, and you want to put your best self forward and inspire them, I guess.
Well, Claire, you are certainly inspiring the next generation of swimmers. You're an inspiration to me as well. And I'm not a swimmer You're inspiring people in the pool and out of the pool. And there is no question in my mind that you are a tarp puller. You live the everybody pulls a tarp mindset. You put in the work. You do the nitty gritty little things to get better and help those around you. And you're lifting others up in and around your sport along the way. Claire, this has been so much fun getting a chance to dig into your career and exploring it all with you. I wish you nothing but the continued success. And I hope that the next time you're standing on an Olympic podium, you feel a little bit more joy and a little less relief. Thank you for being a tarp puller. Thank you for spending some time with me this week. All right, Claire?
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.